Hi everyone, our learning intention for today is to draft our media report. So we need to identify the purpose of a media report, describe the difference between a media report and an information report, apply your understanding to create a draft media report, and reflect. Does my draft include punctuation to help with the flow? In this mini lesson, we're going to focus on describing the difference between a media report and an information report. So what we need to do first is we need to read or have a look at the information report. Okay, I'm not going to read the entire information report with you. I'd like you to do this in your own time. The Black Lives Matter movement was created to remove racism in America and around the world. These movements generally take place in the form of a protest. A protest is when people gather together to stand up for something they believe in. When lots of protests occur about the same issue, it becomes a movement. The Black Lives Matter movement was created in 2013 after George Zimmerman was not charged for his horrible wrongdoings towards a black man. If I scroll down, you will see that there is 3 body paragraphs and then there is a conclusion. So what we are doing today is that you guys are going to use your own information report and you're going to turn that information appropriate for a podcast or for a news report. In the past, we've learned about podcasting and we've learned about news reporting, so that part of the task shouldn't be brand new to you, okay? However, we know that we can't just read the information report on a podcast or a news story because we've learned about the elements of these and they're slightly different to what a written information report looks like. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to take your writing information report and highlight the ideas that you would like to talk about in your podcast or in your news story. So if you have a look, as I scroll down, I have highlighted the main ideas I would like to transfer to my podcast. Okay? So you will need to do exactly the same thing with your own information reports. Highlight the main ideas you would like to transfer into your podcast. So now we're going to have a listen to the podcast to see how the same ideas sound a little bit different when they are presented in the form of a podcast.
Story number 5.
There have been a lot of protests happening in the world lately. In America, in the United Kingdom, right across Europe, and here in Australia as well. So, first things first, what is a protest?
It's people getting together in a group in order to be heard. They might be saying, we need something, or they might be saying, you have to stop this. It's basically like, we actually care.
You walk in the street and you hold signs that can say stuff.
And they all try to get the law changed.
Yep, a protest is a way for people to get together and say no to something. Something that they don't like, or something that they think should change. It's a way to show how they feel and get their voices heard. Right now, people right around the world are protesting racism.
Racism is when you think that one group of people is better than the other, and it's really unfair.
Racism is where you be really mean to that person. Like for Aboriginals or dark-coloured people, they get racism a lot.
Racism is when people are treated unfairly because of where their family is from or the colour of their skin. Black Lives Matter is the name of a movement, a group of protesters who are saying no to racism. If one protest leads to more and lots of protests about the same kind of thing, it gets called a movement, because people want to move from one way of doing things to a different way of doing things.
they're telling the government and also the police that Black Lives Matter, so that what they're telling is not to happen won't happen again.
Because they keep...
Okay, so we can clearly see how the podcast is using the areas that I've highlighted from this information report, and it's presented slightly different. In this situation, the host has children, so interviewees on her podcast, and she keeps asking them the questions. You probably won't have this, and that's okay, but you might want to think about a different way of presenting the information so it's more podcast friendly. Okay, so if you need to, go back to the inquiry lesson about podcasting or about news reporting to refresh your memory of the elements of these two media platforms, so then you can make the appropriate decisions when deciding how to present your information.